Hello, yes. Attention. This is not a drill.
Speak.
Kelsey will never have a girlfriend.
Speak.
Kelsey is a bit of a tube. I hope he can't hear me.
Let's get into the show. This is gonna be a weird one. Maybe more strange than the John episode.
Maybe.
Times 2.
Yeah. Hello.
Welcome to Accessory to Thoughts.
If you are a new listener, you are most welcome. Anybody else who's been listening, we're sorry, but we're gonna keep on doing these.
Yes. Okay, what are we going to talk about? I'm going to talk about the Tower of Babel.
Babel?
Plus other stories.
Is it not Babel?
I think it was originated in a different language, so it doesn't matter.
The Tower of Babel.
Well, it's not supposed to be like Babel, you're babbling, you don't make sense. Because they're different languages.
No, Josh, it was the Tower of Babel because Babel's a country.
What are you talking about?
You're an idiot.
Babel.
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 No.
They're babbling about, they don't understand each other. Their languages
I can't believe
confused.
I didn't
They're
actually.
babbling.
Wait, I didn't notice that. That's
Does
unreal.
not say,
They were babbling because it's from Babel. Yo.
does not say in the... Babel sounds like the Hebrew for confused.
Well, let's get on with it. Let's
Right. So I'm gonna talk about, there's this idea of a false ascension, the way I describe it as a false ascension, okay? And it's related to building heaven on earth, or it's about pride, it's about ideology, okay?
Okay.
This is what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to read Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel or Babel story, okay? Now the whole earth had one language and the same words, and as one people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose will now be impossible for them. Let us go down, and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. They confused the language of all the earth, yeah. I kind of stopped that.
So it was actually
right.
it's called Babel after the events of Babel.
Yes. So, Ben,
Yes, Josh.
what does this mean?
Well, it brings to mind the story how my granddad was a minister, and when he loved like me and you to look at the Old Testament, and even but before the times of the flood and times after it, especially these stories, and how he said was the Tower of Babel was, he believes, was a kind of observatory, because it was around these times where people did look at the stars, and it talks about getting closer and closer to heaven, and this is not building it really, really, really high up, because obviously you won't be able to breathe because of the atmosphere and stuff, but it's out there. It's a known theory that the Tower of Babel was an observatory, and God was, obviously it was getting too close to heaven, it was getting too much to replacing God, and I mean, my theory is mankind was sort of speeding up the process of God's plan, because obviously right now we've got observatories, telescopes, the known observable universe is so massive, but my theory is mankind were like getting to that position like a bit too quickly, and God was like, right, okay, I need to do something. Jesus isn't born yet, Christian faith hasn't happened yet. A bunch of stuff needs to happen before mankind get to this position in time, so he dispersed them. That's my theory.
I think you're a materialist.
I'm not a materialist.
I think you need to stop thinking in terms of like, well, it won't be that high because you can't breathe up there.
Well, yeah, well,
And therefore it must be an observatory or something like that. You gaze at the heavens. Okay. I have offended you and your
you have not
forefathers
offended me.
greatly.
I've simply said my opinion of what I believe most likely is the
Okay,
case.
so it
but
says-
you being a person of symbolism are going to blow my mind again.
So the story of Babel or Babel is it's about people kicking up some bricks to get to heaven. Okay, and they want, and what have we discovered in episodes past? Oh, what have we discovered? Right, the city is a form of covering, isn't it? Then? Right, and it's a idea of, it's a covering. It's an idea of death. It's an idea of technology. Technology is a covering.
Advancement, yeah.
Okay. Not to say that coverings are evil, but let's just point this out, right? Their idea, they're using this newfound technology, bricks, okay, and they're building to heaven with it, okay? Now, I'm just going to rattle off a few things that come to my mind. So, just before this, there was the flood, right? And which was like hyper chaos. Everything was like fluid and underwater, okay? And then out of this came this story of hyper order, okay? Everything had to be accounted for, all nations in one city, one language, okay? Which is hyper order, right? They're accounting for everything. That everything has its place, everything has its number, okay? And what's at the center? It's a tower, it's a city, right? And I think it's pride, right? Because the goal is to get to heaven with this tower, right? As if that they could even do that, right? And it says multiple times, let us go down to see this tower, right? I think it's funny, because why would they need to go down if they're even like closer to heaven?
Well, just on that though,
yeah.
just touching on that briefly, the story of Samson, when he goes down to, I forget the place, what was it, Karth or something, down to where Delilah, his evil wife, was from. Geographically, sorry, that town is actually higher than where Samson lives, and the Bible purposely says he went down because he goes down into sin. You lower yourself, you lower your standards, and I think, sorry, that just,
well, if you're talking about
the same idea.
The Bible doesn't really use elevation as much as it uses north, south, east, and west. Egypt, for example, is like south of. I think like when Jacob went down, he went down to Egypt, right?
Yes.
And then later, they're going north again.
Yeah, it's all.
Anyway, that's a very different story. Not to say that going down is necessarily evil in itself, but so it's Qatar Bible represents the pride of man, okay? Because it's man-centered without the need for God. They're going to heaven on their own terms, right? Through their that's their goal, right? And the covering of the city is now placed at the very center and elevated as such. It's no longer God, because in Israel, they had the Holy Temple and the Ark. It was the Ark, when they were wandering about, the Ark was always at the center, and they formed themselves around the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, it was God-centered. But this is center is man-centered. It's the works of a man that they're focusing towards, right? And comparing this with the idea of the garden, right? What's more, as I say, the Ark was the center of Israel. In the garden, as you get closer to the center, you get closer to the top of this mountain, there's more removal of coverings the closer you go to the center, okay? And it's just a mirror image of what these guys are doing. And it's man-made, not God-made, right? For example, an idea of a Garden of Eden would be the mountains that Moses went up. So the one he went on, the burning bush one, that I can't remember the name of it, but also the Mount Sinai, right? He didn't build anything to get there. Do you know what I mean? But that's for another episode, I guess. And
It all links.
it all links. So from that, I could conclude hyper chaos and hyper order neither can sustain life, and man try to make a solution to this hyper chaos, and which is similar to the ideas of ideology, and the solutions fall flawed. And the very thing that they try to keep out, which would be chaos or the stranger, was found within the walls, born from within. Chaos manifested in the breakdown of groups. Hence, they didn't understand each other suddenly, and they dispersed, right? The stranger was found within. How'd that happen? Oh. And if you think about it, just you need to think about a lot of these stories in forms of just imagine what's going on here. Like, think of an actual picture, okay? They're tarring from earth to heaven to gain in a perverse manner, okay? It's not like they're accepting something, okay? And the whole thing, the whole point of this episode, I want to talk about the proper and improper relationships between heaven and earth. And a lot of these stories are defining the improper relationship between heaven and earth, okay? And I will talk about this later, but I'll hint at it now. Babel has this symbolism of Mark of the Beast, the 666, right? And that sounds crazy because everyone is like, 666, is this the Mark of the Beast? Oh! But I will talk about that. It symbolizes the pride of man, aiming for the highest thing he can see, but he cannot see very far because he is only man. In fact, the people who built the Tower of Babel were in a way blind, and the aim was too low to withstand the chaos of time. So let's leave the story of Babel briefly, and let's go on a journey to Daniel.
Oh yes.
If I can find it, here it is. Daniel chapter 2, 31. So, Big Neb, he had a dream. Big Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Daniel's interpreted the dream. What is the dream? This is the dream here. You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and exceeding in brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head was an image of fine gold, the chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on the feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold, all together were broken in pieces, and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power and the might and the glory, and into whose hand he has given, wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of heaven, making you rule over them all. You are the head of gold. Another kingdom inferior to you shall rise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks into pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all things. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, and they mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all the kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever, just as you saw that stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke into pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and the interpretation sure. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but we were talking about something. I'm not sure it was on a podcast. I was talking about fractals. Everything's pretty much a fractal, right?
Doesn't ring a bell, but go on.
You were talking about eternity or something.
Oh right, this is the one a few days ago. Yeah.
And I was like, this is a fractal. So everything in the Bible can be interpreted in multiple levels of interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel is interpreting this in a communal level, okay? But I shall interpret it on a cosmic level.
Ooh.
Or
Cosmology.
Or individual level. Who knows? Maybe I
just
butcher
about interpreting the Bible. Like if the Bible was interpreted in just the one way, then everyone would just sort of get bored. I mean, it's designed to fill us up and yet still want us hungry for more. But I'll touch on that briefly towards the end, because I think I can see where this is going, and continue with what you're saying.
So this statue of Nebuchadnezzar, or the man. And the top is Nebuchadnezzar. It's man at the top, okay? It's a figure of man. It's a figure of order, okay? It's a figure of technology, all these metals, refined metals.
The city, the advancement.
It's flawed at the base. It's got mixed at the base. It's not stable, okay? And it's a foster for chaos, because it will break down, okay? Again, it's the opposite of the temple, because Nebuchadnezzar is at the top. It's the highest things. Nebuchadnezzar, he's gold. He's a golden head.
Whoa.
Right? Why is this higher than gold? Who knows? Oh, it's man-made with man at the top, to be inevitably destroyed by the holy garden. This stone that was cut by no human hand is the idea of the mountain. It's the idea of the holy garden. Okay.
Creation.
Yes, but on a more complete
Scale,
I guess. And this destroys this man-centered statue, and will have a kingdom that will be everlasting. Let's see if I missed anything.
You can't see this, but Josh has drawn a doodle of the statue of Nebuchadnezzar.
You need to imagine this in terms of pictures here. That's that picture I drew like 50 times in that other one.
The triangle.
Yes, a triangle.
Oh,
yes.
We're all over triangles.
Yes, I will continue on.
Oh yeah.
Daniel 3. Where is it? Okay. King Nebuchadnezzar made a image of gold, whose weight was 60 cubits, and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. The king Nebuchadnezzar sent together the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, and the councils, the treasurers, and justices, and magistrates, and all of the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the councillors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image, and Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast in the burning fiery furnace." Therefore, as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Very interesting. So
Very
this comes
interesting.
immediately after this dream, pretty much. So, Big Neb's like, I had a dream
Where I was God.
where there's a big mountainous figure, I suppose. I was the top, I was the head of gold, but it was flawed at the base. I know what to do. I know how to fix this. I shall make an image of fully gold. Even he's talking about Daniel talked about kingdoms, but it's a bit strange that this was right after it, I think, anyway. So he has this full image of himself of gold. Everything is accounted for. From head to toe, it is gold. How interesting. It's all the same metal to compass all from head to toe. He saw the flaw of the dream, tried to fix it. If you match this with the first use of music, because music is this idea of you flow with music. It's something you experience. It's not like dance now, have fun. Okay,
Yes.
it's using this music in a forceful manner. Okay,
Think about it. Music is essentially a sense of mind control. It, like, whatever you sort of are interested in, any kind of music, it automatically triggers a response in your head that you simply cannot ignore. Like, whatever the occasion, like, music completes a thought process. Music begins and completes a thought process, and I think it is very significant.
well, there's no thought process. You embody something if you're dancing or if you're engaging in a ritual.
Exactly. It both at the same time adds thoughts that you should be thinking, and then deletes the thoughts that they don't want you to think. So anybody who's questioning this is like, no, have a good time, dance, praise, sing, it's okay, this is good banter. Everyone else is doing it, crowd mentality. And, you know, and I just think like the whole use of music, like if you look at sort of the Psalms, right, you've got all the instruments praising God and stuff, and it's like really quite, and most of the Psalms are about pretty much depression and stuff like that, but then there are ones of like pure praise and stuff. But I do find it very interesting whenever you do have sort of pagans using music, and I do think music is a very powerful and key thing, even though it's not mentioned too much through especially the Old Testament or the New Testament, sorry. But I do think it's very interesting the reactions that it gets. It's one of those things that the Bible just says to ensure that, you know, like you didn't have, like it could have just said celebration, but it does zoom in on the fact that, and there was music playing in all these different things like weddings or, you know, brothels or these kinds of things. And then like if you look at Revelation, then they got the final music, sort of the trumpets blaring out, and then the judgment that comes. It's sort of like the song of the gospel, the song of the good news. But yeah, just continue what you're saying, because I do think this is going in a way that I think it's going, and I'm getting prepared for the climax.
Oh dear. Yes, and the measurements of this statue of gold. There's lots of 6. This does not come natural to me. The number side of symbolism.
Cubits.
But, no, I'm talking about the actual. See if I can find it. Well, he's talking about the measurements of it. Whose height it was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. Okay.
A cubit, for those who don't know.
I'm not about cubits. I'm talking about the actual 60 and 6, right?
Oh right, okay.
Because these numbers mean stuff. Okay. So 6 has this idea of a cube. Cube has 6 faces, right? And cubes and squares are related to the earth, and both of those things are related to rationality and work and precise measurement. Okay. And if someone was saying like 666 the mark of the beast, 6 is not evil in itself. Okay, it's just describing something about reality. So it's about the idea of rationality and the earth. Okay, and 7, for example, is about irrationality and rest and circles and heaven. Okay, and this I think this reflects on the way the forceful use of music that I described as like a perverse way of using music because it wasn't its right place. A 6 cannot be on all of a 6's sixness. It cannot invoke aspects of a 7. Okay. I think
A 6 cannot be a 7 because it is a 6.
And there's examples of this. Have you heard any music from a corporate entity that they've put on a presentation or an advert, or it's just like fake music? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The fine fake music.
It's not music.
It's just noise.
Yeah, have you not heard? It's like
Whales,
have you
basically.
not heard an
Whale
advert
music.
where the music is just, it's not music?
No, it's catchy. It's always catchy. It's
I hear
always what?
What are you talking about?
You're talking about advertisements, and you're
so
like,
you listen to advertisement music on your just every day.
right. So you're talking about advertisement. Can you follow where where apparently I've made a mistake here. You're talking about music, and you're like, have you ever heard an advertisement where it's just rubbish, where it's just noise? And I'm like, no, I haven't. It's usually good tunes.
Okay, right. If you look at any corporate advertisement or any corporate display where they have music in the background, it's just some crappy soulless chord progression. It's like
there's no heart in it,
2
Josh.
minutes. There's no.
Josh is a musician, and he's very, very emotional about
It's not,
this.
I hate it.
I have to restrain him here.
Yeah, so basically what I'm telling you is corporations and their advertisements are the mark of the beast, and we should burn them all to the ground.
No,
sorry. Sorry, that was just
that was the beast. That was the beast in you talking.
Yes, okay. So let us move on to Revelations.
Oh yes, best book.
We'll get there. There we go. Nope.
So I think you have a common theme here: how people in high-ranking sort of societies, kings, lords, and stuff like that, how you have essentially this idea of this uniting between heaven and earth in a man's way, and not
Yes.
not in the way that God intended. So that's the
Yes,
theme that we're
yes.
stuck to.
The improper relationship between heaven and earth.
Yes, exactly. Okay, good.
Okay. We will get onto the proper relationship between heaven and earth once I have laid out my case.
Good.
Well, I'm laying out the evidence, then I will lay out my case.
And then we will crack the case.
Yes. Revelation 12.
Oh, good.
3-4. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on the heads of the 7... What? And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads 7 diadems. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. We got there.
Lovely and graphic.
That was the hardest 2 verses that I've ever read. Ridden.
Oh, there.
Redden.
Red.
Yes. I shall read on.
Better this time, please.
Chapter 13. 1-10. The first beast. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and a great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marvelled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words. And it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling. That is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, It was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name was not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone who is to be taken captive to captivity, he goes. If anyone is to be slain with a sword, must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance of faith of the saints. Okay.
What I find fascinating with that passage is like this, that God is the skeleton. Like God's like, and he was allowed to. Like I let him do this, and I give him authority. It's never the dragon took authority from God. It's never putting God in a rough spot. It's God in control of all of this, allowing it to happen for the completion of all things.
Yes, I realised I was about to read on. The second beast. And I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns, like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wind was healed. It performed great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people, by the signs that it allowed to work in the presence of the beast. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it caused all, both great, small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number of the beast is a man, and the number is 666.
Another thing. Another thing that I find, 2 things here. Another thing that I find interesting about that is there's no neutral ground. There's no bystanders. It's everyone. And I think that's quite significant. Like, even if you're not a believer in Christ, then you're a believer in this said beast. It's like, no, I'm not a satanic ritualist. I don't believe in anything. Well, then you're the beast. Like, it's just clear about that. And the second thing, did you see the little Nas thing? He's a rapper, and basically this all comes into completion here. He's a rapper, and he went into partnership with Nike with and his music video is basically Satan in hell having sex with him. And then the new shoe that Nike has come out has 666 all over it. It's made with real human blood. There's real human blood in this shoe, and I'm not making this up. Like, I can get it for you right now.
There's blood in the shoe.
There's blood in the shoe. So if I get you this here thing, right, I'm going to read it out to you. It's insanity. It is absolutely insanity. So, yeah. So this is Elijah Schaffer from Slightly Offensive. So woke up and found a rapper had sex with the devil in a music video and is now selling human blood shoes in a partnership with Nike, but it's still controversial to publicly follow the teachings of Jesus Christ and believe there are only 2 genders, blah, 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 at the end of this, anything else. Look at this. So that's the music video. Right. It's completely satanic. Lil Nas X says children are his core audience right now, and that's okay, as he's having intercourse with the devil. And there's the shoe there. And this shoe has real components of human blood in it. It's got 666 on it. It's also got Luke 10:18, and basically that's the verse about trotting on scorpions and snakes and you will not be hurt. But then it fails to read on. But yeah, and then there's the box it comes in. So, and you can look it up, just search up Lil Nas X devil shoes, partnership with Nike. Completely done with Nike.
Okay, well, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, but like, it's just insane that that's like a thing that's allowed now. And it's just what you're saying here. There are actually, like, as I was saying, there's no middle ground. Like, maybe you don't care for satanics and stuff, but it is everywhere. There's that rapper with big, huge company like Nike, and they're just openly mocking really serious things right now, and it's a disgrace. But yeah, continue.
Okay, so this second beast is like a false prophet kind of thing. who's trying to point everyone towards the first beast.
Mhm.
And everyone who worships this beast will have a mark on their hand or forehead, right? And this is to do with thought and action. Okay? And if you're talking about the number 666, the significance of that being 666, I won't hold a lot of... I won't hold fast to 666 because in some transcripts it's actually 616, and that could also be 666.
666
Can be calculated. It was same way if you like for like a child's like puzzle. Maybe you got like letters of the alphabet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in ancient times, that sometimes this is how you would describe someone's name. You know, 666 was like I think it's calculated to be Nero, but 616 is like Nero in Greek or something like that.
The sixth letter of the alphabet is F. Is it F? F in chat.
I don't know. I don't know much about it, but Hebrew and Greek is more complicated than English anyway. But so I don't really care about the actual number 666. It's just think about the mark of the beast. Okay, it's just the mark of the beast.
It's a mark.
What is a mark of the beast? Right, it's something that's on your hands or your head, your thought, or your action. This ties in with ideology. So it does. And I will go into the start of my conclusion.
The evidence is there. Now we begin.
Okay, right, here we go. This is gonna be a rough ride. So Bible. First word I failed. Babel. Yes, tries
You're
to
babbling.
encompass all, in this case, nations, okay, and people and language. This includes the fringes of chaos. Hold that thought.
Okay.
The beast has 10 horns. Well, the dragon and the first beast. They have 10 horns and 7 heads. I did not read something. Hang on. It's alright. Almost there.
Bear with.
Oh, wait a minute. There's 2 things I didn't read.
Ensure
I better get
you've
cracking
done
on.
your homework, Josh, before
And another
podcasting.
angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and its image, will receive the mark of its on his forehead or in his hand. He will also drink the wine of the God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, these worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the marks of its name. Here is the call of the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus." And I heard a voice from saying from heaven, "Write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on, blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labours, for their deeds follow them." And I have
The epic final battle.
one more thing to read, and then I will continue on.
You're gonna have to summarize
Right.
really briefly after this.
Okay. Then I saw at the right hand of him who was seated on the throne a scroll written within and on the back, sealed the 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And no one in heaven or earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look upon it. And I began to weep loudly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, so that he might open the scroll and its 7 seals." And between this throne and the 4 living creatures, and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, and which are 7 spirits of God, sent out into all the earth. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll for the four living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and open the seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you're ransomed people for God. And every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to your God, and they shall reign on the earth. Then I looked, and I heard around the throne, around the throne and the living creatures and the elders of the voice, many angels numbering myriads and thousands of thousands, sing with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive the power and wealth and wisdom and might and honour and glory and blessing." And I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them, saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honour and glory and might forever and ever." And the 4 living creatures said, "Amen." And the elders fell down and worshipped. There we go.
Right, okay, so just to summarise everything that Josh has said for you listeners who have lost their minds, I'm going to summarise. So, Josh, you started this podcast with Big Tar, Earth to Heaven, the relationship between heaven and earth through man's efforts to achieve such a relationship. And there has been repeated patterns throughout the Bible of man's attempt to reach heaven over and over again. And as we've seen, Anan, what you've just read is...
Big Tar.
I just said that. Okay.
Big man.
Big Tar, big man.
Dragon.
Big dragon.
Big beast.
Big beast. Big thing.
Maybe smaller beast after that.
Oh, maybe.
Image of beast.
7.
Lamb.
6.
Many eyes
6.
on the lamb.
7s. Numbers.
There we go.
Scrolls and angels.
Now we shall get into it.
Welcome to Revelation.
Babel tries to encompass all nations. This includes the fringes of chaos. The beast has 10 horns and 7 heads. The lamb has 7 horns, 7 eyes, and only 1 head. Whoa. Whoa. Why is this? The beast / Babel / a big Nebuchadnezzar's statue is an inversion of the pattern. It's the Antichrist in nature. It does not have harmony with heaven and earth. It is an outcast of heaven and a tyranny to earth. It does not sacrifice itself for without which is below, like the lamb does. And it does... it goes into this. And it does not submit itself to which is above, which would be God. It wants to encompass all, and to give it one name, the mark of the beast. It does not follow the harmony of unity and multiplicity. Hence the 7 heads and 1 body. The 7 heads are 7 principles, but not submitted to what is above, while still competing for the one body. Do you understand that part?
Yep.
So they're conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have an example that I think is pretty cool.
Okay, go.
As if it were a leg of a chair. Only it does not want to be just the leg of a chair, but the whole chair. It does not submit to that which is above, which is the idea of a chair. It does not want to fit into that pattern. Or, the other way around, it is as if it is the whole chair. And instead of allowing the legs of a chair, or the back of a chair, or the base of a chair, it is only chair. It only wants one name.
Mm-hmm.
With no recognition of parts, no individuality. This is similar to ideological possession. No individuality. This is the tyranny I speak of. This is the essence of the Antichrist, the antithesis of love, which would be the proper relationship between heaven and earth.
It's interesting that there's a sense of... So we talk about it. We talk about it as a sort of, as you say, the leg of the chair, sort of like trying to conquer the rest of the chair to be the only chair. But then also it gives you sort of a sense of unity, to unify the whole chair to be one chair, that kind of thing. So it talks also about nations as well.
Yeah, and I'll give another example.
Under one nation.
So we talk about, that's the antithesis of love. What is my definition of love? Love is the harmony between unity and multiplicity, heaven and earth. The submitting to that which is above you and sacrificing yourself to what is beneath you. Like a family unit can be seen as one unit, but we can also recognize the individuality of each part, each member, that make up the whole. It can be done a better way. To not realize a family is made of individuals and only to see the name is unloving. But to only see the individuals with no relation to each other, no rank, no respect or authority given to one's forefathers, it's also unloving. The unity between heaven and earth, Babel, the uniting between heaven and earth, Babel, etc., highlights the antithesis to this pattern of love. Right there.
It's both individualism and unity at the same time.
Yeah, but it's the worst form of both. Right? Individual to its extreme because it only wants to see itself, not what it's a part of. And unity because it only sees itself and not what it has to serve, what's beneath it.
That's almost like slavery there.
Yeah, it's tyranny. That's what I describe it as tyranny. And that's man-made. But like ideologies are like broken religions. They're doomed to fail. Any ideology is cannot succeed. Okay? Think of any ideology. And what good has it actually really done in the end? And it possesses people as well.
Yes, yes. I was just going to say
the extent where it's not people anymore. It's okay. You're
pawns.
You are this ideology. Like I said, the chair doesn't want to see the parts of the chair. There's only a chair. You just see chairs about.
It's sort of like
you just see chairs and tables, but you don't see legs.
The
of
room.
those. You don't see the chair's legs. Sort of.
Yeah, it's sort of like a chess game, I guess. Maintaining you are a pawn, you will only be a pawn, and I will use you like a pawn. When that is tyranny. But in the bigger picture, it's also like, and because that you're the only pawn, you then complete the whole game as a chess game. As this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to win, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. And I think that sort of sums up the whole plan of, because I love games, and this sort of all that you've been saying sort of links to this giant match at the end, this big throwdown of good and evil.
Yeah, because the thing about it in chess, right? Say there's a pawn. If a pawn started doing its own thing, that'd be a problem, wouldn't it?
It would be a problem, yeah. Well, I mean, when it gets to the end of the board, it then can become whatever it wants.
No, but I mean, if the black pawn did not submit itself to the black team, the player who's a third person, I'll be a green player chess. I'll be this pawn here, guys. Isn't that cool? Sorry to trash in your board game idea, Ben.
I understand.
But also, if all the pieces in the chessboard were the same, it wouldn't be as fun. It won't be as interesting. You know. So I will. Why did I want to talk about this? Right. I want to expose this pattern. Did I convey the relationship between these seemingly extremely different ideas?
You went through the Bible,
the whole book.
You went through Genesis to Revelation to show that there is a pattern of mankind striving to replace God or striving to reach heaven, not for the sake of peace, but for the sake of being like heaven. To say we can get to heaven on our own. Yeah. But it never works. It never works because there's always a bigger fish, and that fish is God. So this is what I've written here. Learn the pattern to recognize it and flee from it. Aim for the unity between heaven and earth. Don't be this is going to be strange. Do not be what you are not. Be what you are. Like the Lord is what he is, the great I am who I am. Be a Christian. Thought and action as one. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Likewise, we should be on earth as we are in heaven in Christ. Unity of heaven and earth in harmony. Aim for love. Yeah, I think my conclusion. Something that is very profound there, what you've just said, is be. If you see these patterns through the Bible, you will see it in real life. You will see what's unholy and what is holy, and you've closed it. I just want to. It does seem like doom and gloom that humanity itself is like always trying to better, and it is, yeah. But I just want to read quickly, because at the very start of this, I just want to remind people that there's a way to escape the beast. There's a way to escape the tyranny that you're describing, and this is Ephesians 1, verse 3. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, even as he chooses us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him. In love he predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purposes of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace, which he has blessed us in the beloved. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of his grace, which he lavished upon us in all wisdom and insight, making known to us the mystery of his will, according to his purpose, which he set forth in Christ, as a plan for the fullness of time, to unite all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth. In him we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to the purposes of him who works all things according to the counsel of his will, so that we who were for the first to hope in Christ might be to the praise of his glory. In him you also, when you heard the word of the truth, the gospel of your salvation, and believed in him, were sealed with the promised Holy Spirit, who is the guarantee of our inheritance until we acquire possession of it, to the praise of his glory. Now, I think this is so profound, and I think it ties up very nicely what you've been saying. We're talking about this sort of overarching, scary sort of cosmological power that is going to pull us both directions. It's going to pull us in a way that's not heavenly, but under the guise of saying this will make you more heavenly, and then the creator of the universe, who actually is of heaven. And it's opposite tactics that lead to the result that the other side want to have. And what do I mean by that? The tactics of Satan, tactics of the evil one, is, as you've said, this building of something man-made to try and replace God, and it works. We see that it works in every day. We see that things are always pulling people. It's the whole reason why people do not believe. Whereas God does a completely opposite thing. God gives us a foothold. God gives us everything. God has already built everything for us. All we simply need to do is, as it said in Ephesians there, to believe, and that we will be accepted according to his grace, that we will be that we have inherited that unity that the beast can only dream of having. Because what does the beast want? The beast wants unity of all people to himself. But God will never allow that to happen. He allows it to happen to discern the goats and the sheep, the follower of him and the followers of the evil one. But that Ephesians 1, like, that is one of the most amazing passages, because it talks about the love of God and the inheritance that we have, and that we are secure and safe in the name of God. We are chosen to display such... It gets to the point where we're happy enough to be a pawn in God's greater works, because the moment, like... This is a wild thing, right? Christians are immortal until the job that we have, that God has set for us, is done. Like, Christians will not die until they've fulfilled the plan that God has set for them. Like, and that's pretty insane, and that gives me lots of hope and confidence. And I think, just in wrapping this up, we've said a bunch of scary things about the reality of, like, I guess, a spiritual reality, that actually there are evil forces in place that are pretty nasty, and they're not just the crimes of the world, like theft and tyranny and dictatorship. It's actually a lot more tempting, a lot more inviting than that. But what Ephesians there says is that through Jesus Christ and through belief, we are adopted as sons. We are to be separate, first of all, from the world, so that the world can then unify with heaven, and there will be forever joy, forever peace, and there will never again be a reason for man to try and build themselves up to be God. And I think that is the key difference when we do combat these scary verses. There's always a hope there in Jesus Christ, in the love of God, so that. And it baffles me how opposite it is. You have strength and tyranny and nations uniting to replace God, and then the complete opposite happens with God. He sends his son to die for us so that we may be humble and have humility to follow that. And through that we get our armor, through that we get our sword, through that we become armed to face whatever battle Satan throws at us. And so it allows us to recognize evil. As you said, if we understand the passages, or the patterns in God's word, we can then see it in the real world. But then I guess that leads us all the more, it makes us all the more thankful for obviously the gift that is Jesus Christ. But I'm going to throw a spanner in the works and just read this one last verse, which is really honestly quite terrifying. So this is from Matthew 10:34. This is Jesus talking. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a person's enemies will be those of his own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Now,
Which ties in.
Which
you're not setting your sights high enough.
Exactly. This is the key. This is the key difference, I think, between good and evil. Right? Evil is so tempting. You know, you feel good by doing it. You sort of have this idea of completion when you do good things out of the willingness of your sort of own heart, and that's what makes it so tempting and terrifying and really, really hard to recognize. It's camouflaged with goodness. Whereas with good, it's completely against man's desires. You know, this sort of debunks the whole idea that the Christianity is man-made. Like, why would a bunch of people put together a religion that goes against all of man's desires? It just doesn't make sense. But everything that we want to do, God is like, I know you're going to be tempted to do these things, but there is a gift that I have for you that you can endure. And when you need to recognize that I'm not here for peace, I'm not here to make sure everyone's happy, and that's definitely a problem with modern Christianity these days. We're making Christianity look inviting and wholesome and popular. It's the popular thing to do when the reality is real, like biblical based Christianity is a responsibility that we all have. That yes, we can take joy in it, but it's so hard. But it's verses like Ephesians 1 that certainly keeps me going and definitely combats with the scariness of what's going to happen. These other towers of Babel that are being built sort of everywhere. We can recognize that and we can trust in God that everything will be okay because we have that undying and unrelenting love and grace of God. And I think that's the key thing to combat such evil.
I want to talk about a few things before we finish. This, I talk about the Antichrist, right? The inversion of the pattern, but you can't invert a pattern without relating back to the pattern. Which is interesting, do you not think? Right? He doesn't, and all of the Antichrist, anything that's absolutely Antichrist has, there's even through that they're pointing to Jesus somehow through all of that. What else was I gonna say? Yeah, think about just everyday terms, right? Say you thought, say your Tower of Babel was this, right? I'll have I'll have I'll meet someone. I'll have a family. I'll have this job. Happy days. Here's a good plan, right? But in the end, it's from your own making. It's man-made, okay? And I've talked about big, massive scales, like ideology, but also in this individual, everyday life, you're not avoiding it kind of scale. Because many of the people, they reach that, they get the job they want, they get the promotion they want, they get the family, and they're like, well, I'm depressed now. I'm utterly depressed. I've got it. Why am I not happy? Why am I not complete?
Why are we not satisfied?
Because your sights are not high enough. And when you're saying Christians live forever until God's plan is completed, the Christian story always exists. It's even in its opposite, it's stated again. This is why I really felt like calling to talk about Jonah, because everyone I've asked that talked about this about, there's an uneasiness, right? It's just like things aren't right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been increases of people saying, right, well, I think the end is near, right? The rapture, or whatever.
Mm.
Okay, you see those videos; they're more frequent.
Yeah.
Which is strange. I assume they're feeling the same way. It's uneasiness. It's like incompleteness. Like what's
going to happen?
Yeah, and end of the world or not, it's the same. The signs are the same, and the outcome is.
Has it? Oh no! Has it been recording the whole time? Are we okay?
Okay, right. Sorry, my laptop shut down. Okay, so
Had a scare.
The last thing it captured was there's uneasiness. People think the rapture is near.
Okay, so that's all right. That's okay.
What was I talking about?
No, it's all right. I'm sure I can sum it up here. So, battling the best way to talk about the spiritual battles that are happening is to obviously look at the patterns that you were talking about, Tower of Babel.
Yes, I interrupted you at this point. Pattern.
Pattern, yes.
What is a pattern? Pattern, I need to speak to the mic. Pattern is the thing that repeats itself. It reinstates itself over and over again. I didn't talk about the Antichrist, so it didn't record, did it?
Well, no, it's fine. I mean, so a pattern 1 2 1 2 1 2 backwards is still 1 2 1 2 1 2, and I think we need to find hope as Christians, because a lot of Christians are saying this is the end times, and we can recognize that, yeah, but like it's been happening since the beginning of the world. We have these rise and falls. It doesn't matter if this is the end times or the end times are going to happen in 1,000 years' time, right? There's still going to be a rise. There's still going to be that hope, and that hope is only in Jesus Christ. That gives us this preparation to talk about things like this. So why we do what we do is because we think it's fulfilling the plan that Jesus Christ has for us. So when we do talk about these sort of patterns, we are both like we're
okay. I think all right. I'm gonna just say stuff because I'm pretty sure I didn't record some of the stuff.
Okay.
I talked about. So I talked about Antichrist a few times in this. Okay, and in the clues in the name, Antichrist. There cannot be an Antichrist if the thing is opposing Antichrist. That's that's the thing it's based its identity on. Okay, so in a way, everything that even all this Antichrist stuff, right, and imagery in the Bible, right, Genesis or Revelation, like it reinstates. It's an inversion. If it's an inversion of the pattern, it's still part of the pattern. It's still pointing towards what the pattern is, because it's a mirror image of it, right? You can have a mirror image of something that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So in a weird way, the idea of the Antichrist does point to Christ. And do you want to continue on?
Yes. So as you say, the Antichrist obviously points to Christ because the word Christ is there. So we're obviously like, well, who is Christ? Like it makes sense. And I think one of the most profound things about being a Christian that I find is, yes, we follow this pattern where you live in this pattern, but the only way to discover the pattern is to zoom out and actually notice it. Loads of people don't notice patterns because they're in it. You know, you don't see the pattern. Like the only reason we see patterns is because we're looking upon it.
The pattern, right? It's not just a pattern. It's a fractal pattern. Okay, you zoom in and zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Right? There's Revelation. It's this like super zoomed out, more than the human mind can actually really fathom. It's just on the brink of understanding it.
This is why, yes, because it was all visions shown to John. It wasn't John writing these
John
down.
did not understand
It was God going, John, if you really want to know my plans, watch this. And John was like, because he broke down like a few times in it. It fell to his face.
So what I outline here, right? I Revelation part. This is like a super cosmic pattern. Babel is a smaller example of a pattern. It's in the community scale, right? The people scale, okay? And I can go right down to everyday life scale, okay? And I'm going to give my example I gave last time. Many people, they have an idea, they have their own little Tower of Babel, as I could call it, and they bet, I'll have this family, I'll have this job.
They feel like they're doing good.
This is their goal. I'll have this job, I'll have this family, and I'll be a successful person. Good plan, right? But they get there. This is a common occurrence. This happens all the time. They get there, and they're utterly depressed because
what else?
they've reached their goal.
Now what?
What happens next? Right, depression, meaningless life,
Unsatisfactory.
Yeah. Okay. And this is because, as outlined throughout Babel, their sight was not set high enough, because they cannot set their sights high enough, because they don't see far enough to set their sights high enough, so they always fall short. And this is why ideology will pass, right? Like, nations will pass, everything will pass, people will pass, but the pattern does not pass. The pattern reinstates itself over and over again. Its inversion reinstates itself. The reason I had Colin to do the Jonah episodes and this episode as well, is that end of the world or not, as people seem to think it's always the end of the world in some way, but it's part of the pattern, okay? There's flips in part of the pattern. We go up the mountain, we go down the mountain, you get swallowed by the fish, okay? And this is evident throughout no matter how big your lens is, or how small your lens is,
or how worried you are it's going to end.
On the individual scale and on the massive
cosmological,
all things considered scale, it's the same pattern. Okay,
I find comfort in that.
This is how many times have I told you? It's the same pattern, Ben. Look, it's the same pattern.
It's the same story.
Look, this one and this one, it's the same pattern. This is the same and this one as well.
Hero story. A moment in time where the hero has a challenge to overcome, same way as everything in the Bible. And this is why, as you said,
it's more complicated than that.
Oh, yeah, but like in its basic form, the pattern is rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. Even if the fall that we're in right now, if we are in a fallout that is right now, the rise, if it is the rapture, if it is the calling home of all Christians, and the judgment day happens, it still follows the pattern. It's still like another rise. But then, you're like, well, what happens after that? Is there going to be a fall in heaven? Absolutely not, because we're promised that this nightmare is going to end with the hope of Jesus Christ. That's the thing. We are chosen to escape and to live joyfully as we want, as we are freely in the presence and the love of our Father in heaven. And I think this is the key. This is why Christianity is not a joke. This is why any of this is not, it's so flippin' serious. It's so real. Why do people not care? Because they feel like they're doing fine already on their own. They feel like they're doing okay. But C.S. Lewis, what you talked about, satisfaction and how that people are depression. C.S. Lewis says, if nothing in this world can satisfy us, then clearly we were made for a different world. Now, I don't know what's more torturous. My idea of sort of hell, right, is because hell is not where evil is. Hell is where evil goes to be destroyed. The evil is in earth. Satan's not in hell. The devil's not in hell. He's going to go to hell. The rest is with the people who are going, unfortunately. And this is the scary thing. Where was I going with this? I think that makes it more terrifying. Could you imagine an eternity of unsatisfaction? Because in heaven is satisfaction.
I think we should talk about heaven and hell.
Another episode. I have a topic coming up about eternity, and it will be in that.
Very interesting. I believe it's very interesting.
It's very interesting, and so is heaven. Heaven's the best thing to think about.
Describe hell. Interesting.
Quite interesting. Well, for us, it's
quite interesting.
Right. I think if I just have to say one last thing. The hope is in Jesus Christ. Believe it. It's a very long episode. The hope is in Jesus Christ. We should just call this episode marathon, but hope is in Jesus Christ. If you believe in Jesus Christ, he will give you the sight. He says, knock and the door will open, seek me and you will find. Once you have the knowledge, once you are a Christian, you will understand the podcast of ATT. You will get it. You will grasp it. And I believe that. You will fully understand the gravity of the situation. But also, because of Jesus, he says that we have to bear our cross, but also at the end of it, how much more will the pain be alleviated because of it? Okay,
well, as actual wrapping up, my final words would be, set your aim to the highest thing, not in your ability, but in
Go beyond. Go further.
Aim for the pattern which does not cease,
Mm-hmm.
and you will live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Is what Christianity is about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into that.
Aim
Like,
for love.
yes. So thank you so much for
Thank
listening.
you for tuning in to this
Aim
episode
for love.
of ATT.
If you're new, we're sorry. That was a marathon of an episode, but we enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much if you listened this long.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.